And today we are undertaking a deep dive into some really surprising source material. It's a book titled The Mystery of Dust and Sand Warfare. Our mission really is to unpack the central claim of this text, and it's quite something. It argues that common everyday stuff, dust, sand, ashes, salt, these aren't just physical things.
No, not at all. The author positions them as potent, often completely overlooked instruments in, well, advanced spiritual conflict.
Used for both sides, right? Cursing and blessing.
Exactly. And the core idea right from the start is this fundamental link, an inescapable one, the author argues, between us, humanity, and the ground we walk on.
Going back to Genesis?
Precisely. Genesis 2.7, man formed from the dust of the ground. And then Genesis 3.19, we return to dust. It brackets our existence.
So the logic presented is almost mathematical in a way, because we're made of earth and tied to it, controlling the land or the dust.
Gives you leverage, spiritual leverage specifically, to influence or control the person living on that land.
It's not just where we live, it's what we fundamentally are, physically speaking.
That's the premise. The earth isn't just scenery, it's the substance, the very theater of battle for our destiny, our welfare, according to this source.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the foundation of this connection. How does the book elaborate on this tie beyond just the creation story?
Well, it frames it existentially. You could say we walk on the land, obviously. We farm it for food. Our sustenance comes from it. And ultimately, we're buried in it.
Right. Walking, farming, resting, it's constant.
It's a perpetual interaction. And the source argues this isn't just, theological footnote. It's presented as a known, actionable principle in various traditions.
And the author uses specific cultural examples to back this up, which I found pretty compelling. They mentioned traditional Igbo culture in West Africa, where new settlers, historically, would make a covenant with the land itself, often using an idol, Ana, or Ani, they called it.
And the purpose was explicit, to ensure the land offered protection, but only if the settlers respected its rules, obeyed its spiritual authority.
It really shows this idea of the land being personified almost.
Yeah.
Having agency.
Absolutely. The book states the belief plainly. The land sees, it hears, it speaks, it understands. It's not passive.
Like that saying the author highlights, sand has ears.
Exactly. And this belief wasn't just folklore. It had real-world application, like in certain oath-taking ceremonies.
Where you had to take off your shoes.
Yes. Stand barefoot on the sand. The belief was that the land itself, the sand, would smite anyone who swore falsely. It acted as a witness and an enforcer.
Wow. The earth as judge and jury. That leads directly into the author's point about, well, a knowledge gap, doesn't it?
It does. If these traditional, often non-Christian practices, things like pouring libations, burying charms, chanting incantations to the land, if they're based on understanding and exploiting this elemental link.
Then what about others? What about Christians, for instance?
The source pulls no punches here. It claims that these traditional practitioners, or those the author terms non-believers, they get this. They understand these mysteries and use them actively.
Wow.
While, according to the text, a huge percentage, the author estimates 90 to 98% of Christians, remain ignorant of this entire dimension of spiritual warfare, elemental warfare.
So the argument is stark. This ignorance isn't benign. It directly leads to suffering, to vulnerability.
Precisely. Because your adversaries, spiritual or otherwise, might be operating on this level using the very ground you stand on strategically. And if you don't know the rules of engagement for that territory,
You're exposed, defenseless in a way.
Exactly.
Okay, so if the land is the battleground, let's look at the weapons. How is dust used offensively according to the source? It's not just passive dirt.
No, far from it. The book points to clear biblical precedents where dust acts as a divine weapon of judgment. The prime example is the third plague in Egypt. Right? Moses and Aaron didn't call down fire or anything like that. Aaron smoothed the dust of the land, and it instantly became lice, afflicting everyone, man and beast.
It wasn't just an infestation, it was a transformation of the ground itself into something hostile.
A targeted transmutation. And significantly, the Egyptian magicians, who'd managed to replicate the first two plagues with their own arts.
They couldn't do this one.
They couldn't touch it. They had to admit this is the finger of God. The author uses this to argue that dust warfare represents an advanced dimension of spiritual warfare.
And this isn't just ancient history, is it? The source connects this to the New Testament too.
Yes, very directly. Through Jesus' own instructions to his disciples in Matthew 10, when a town rejected their message, the gospel.
He told them to shake off the dust of your feet.
Exactly. Which sounds simple, maybe just symbolic, but the book interprets this as a deliberate, authorized act of passing judgment.
So not just we're leaving, but something more potent.
Much more. The source claims this action effectively curses the land of that place and condemns the people to a fate worse than Sodom and Gomorrah. It's a formal spiritual severing. You're leaving them and their territory to the consequences.
It's using the element itself to seal their fate.
That's the idea.
And it wasn't only common dust. The author makes a point about ashes too, doesn't he? Highlighting Moses again.
Yes, the dust of the furnace, as Exodus puts it. Moses takes handfuls of ashes, throws them towards heaven, and they become painful boils on everyone, Egyptians and their animals.
Ashes as a more concentrated form of dust.
Sort of. Dust that's been through fire, transformed. The source links ashes, often associated with mourning or repentance, to the power to inflict sickness, carry severe judgment, even death.
We also see dust used in raw, human-driven curses, like Shimei cursing David.
Right, in 2 Samuel, he's throwing stones and casting dust as part of the act of cursing.
And centuries later, the crowd rejecting Paul and Acts, throwing their clothes off, shouting, and throwing dust into the air. It seems like an ultimate expression of contempt and rejection, using the dust itself.
It becomes the physical vehicle for the curse or the judgment, which naturally leads to the next question. If God's agents and even angry humans can use dust this way,
how does the enemy, the Dark Kingdom, use these same elements?
Yes. And here's where it gets really interesting. The source shifts to detailing methods of affliction, specifically how adversaries allegedly weaponize dust and sand.
Not just symbolically, but operationally.
Operationally. The book claims they treat dust as a kind of spiritual gate, a way to call victims back to the dust prematurely, essentially, calling them back to death.
That's dark. How would they even do that?
Through incredibly personal means, according to the text. They might collect sand or dust from a person's specific footprint.
From where they actually walked.
Yes. Or from their compound, their home turf even, the source claims, from where they might have urinated. This collected earth is then treated as spiritual missile.
Aimed at what?
Aimed at disrupting that person's life, their destiny, health, finances. It's using their physical trace on the land against them.
So any place you physically touched or occupied could potentially be used if someone knew how.
That's the implication. Proximity and contact create a spiritual link, an identification point. They leverage that man-land connection. Other methods mentioned include scattering sand into the air.
For what purpose?
To cause immediate, localized problems. Confusion, strife, even divorce, the book suggests, like throwing spiritual static into the environment.
And maybe the most disturbing claim is about using the land to spiritually bury someone's success.
Yes, using the earth itself to construct a spiritual cage or a grave for a person's business, their marriage, their finances, locking their progress into the ground, effectively.
Which loops back to those biblical ideas about the land itself having agency.
Exactly. The source explicitly references verses like Leviticus 18, Numbers 13, talking about the land eating up inhabitants or vomiting them out because of their actions.
So the land is seen as responsive. It hears commands, whether divine or not.
That's the view presented. The land hears and executes. It's an active participant, not just a stage.
Let's shift gears slightly to another element the book focuses on. Salt. It talks about the mystery of the covenant of salt.
Right. Salt is presented differently. Not so much as a weapon of direct affliction like dust, but as a powerful binding agent.
Binding? In what way?
Think about salt properties. Preservation, primarily. So the covenant of salt, mentioned in Numbers, and Leviticus symbolizes something permanent, lasting, loyal.
An unbreakable agreement.
Exactly. The source calls it eternally binding, perpetual, irrevocable. It signifies permanence and fidelity. Historically, this wasn't just symbolic either.
The ancient treaties.
Yes, in ancient Palestine, treaties were often sealed by sharing salt and bread. It literally sealed the deal, signifying a bond meant to last.
Okay, that's the covenant aspect. How does that translate into spiritual warfare?
It becomes a source of immense power through divine loyalty. The book gives the example of King Abijah in 2 Chronicles.
He was facing overwhelming odds, wasn't he?
Hugely outnumbered by Jeroboam's army. But Abijah stands up and invokes the covenant of salt that God made with David and his lineage. He basically calls upon that unbreakable promise, and he wins a massive, decisive victory. The covenant itself, sealed by salt, became his strategic spiritual weapon. It guaranteed God's backing.
So that's the proactive covenantal power. But the source also discusses salt's other uses, almost paradoxical ones, healing and destruction.
That duality is key. On the one hand, you have Elisha at Jericho. The waters are bad, the land's barren. What does he use?
Salt. He throws salt into the spring.
And the waters are healed, made sweet. Life returns. So salt is shown as a purifying agent, something that can cleanse, restore, bring sweetness back. This implies it can be used to break curses, destroy charms, nullify negative influences.
But then there's the other side. Abimelech, after destroying a city.
He sows it with salt. Judges 9.45. The intention, to make it utterly desolate, barren, uninhabitable for years to come.
Why do that? Just vengeance.
The author suggests it was more than that. It was also likely intended to make the ground spiritually hostile, preventing strange spirits or enemy forces from settling there again, turning it into a spiritual dead zone.
So salt binds either in covenant or in desolation. It seals a condition.
Precisely. Which is why the source suggests it can be used strategically to bring sweetness back to a troubled situation, a struggling marriage, a failing business, by spiritually cleansing the foundation, the ground, beneath the problem.
Okay, moving beyond dust and salt, the source then looks at other physical items used in this type of warfare. Pictures and stones.
Yes, broadening the scope. The chapter on pictures argues they aren't just snapshots. They are viewed as potent prophetic tools.
How so?
Well, on a basic level, they can help focus prayer or intention. But the core claim is more profound. A picture has a voice. It can project influence.
Influence for good or bad?
Both. It can be used positively for attraction or identification. But negatively, the source warns, pictures can carry seductive forces, like the idolatrous images mentioned in Ezekiel, or be used as points of contact for attack.
Attack how? What does the source claim adversaries do?
Disturbing things. Marring or piercing a photograph to inflict corresponding pain or shame on the person pictured, or even spiritually burying a picture, say, of a business logo or a married couple to cause failure or dissolution.
Manipulating the representation to affect the reality.
That's the principle. And then there are stones. The book talks about the stones of David.
Going back to David and Goliath.
Yes, but interpreting it symbolically. David's smooth stone wasn't just a lucky shot with a sling. It's presented as a prophetic decree made tangible, a word of judgment and destruction given physical form and throne.
So stones carry weight, spiritually speaking.
Immense weight. They are fundamental building blocks, both physically and spiritually. Think of all the altars built with stones in Genesis and Exodus.
Jacob's pillar, the commandments.
Exactly. Building an altar establishes a place of covenant and power. The source suggests stones can be prophetically charged, used to establish divine authority, or even to speak destruction against enemies, metaphorically throwing them out of places they don't belong.
Okay, so pulling all this together, dust, sand, ashes, salt, pictures, stones, what's the ultimate takeaway from the mystery of dust and sand warfare?
The synthesis is pretty clear. The author argues that the spiritual battle many talk about isn't happening in some abstract realm. It's deeply embedded in the physical reality we navigate every single day.
Using the most common, mundane elements.
Precisely. The world, according to this view, is engaged in a very real, often advanced form of spiritual conflict, using these accessible materials. And the author's conclusion is unavoidable. Knowledge is power. Understanding these mechanisms, these mysteries, is absolutely critical.
For defense and offense.
For both. It's the key to navigating this unseen battle successfully.
So what does this all mean? It means understanding the power dynamic tied to the very ground beneath your feet. It reframes everything.
It really does. The source hammers home that classic verse, "My people perish for lack of knowledge."
If the ground listens, if salt binds covenants, if a picture has a voice,
then there's no neutral territory. Every element around you, every place you stand, is potentially transmitting spiritual information or influence.
Which leaves a final, pretty provocative thought for you, the listener, the learner. How does understanding this, mastering this knowledge of elemental links change your perspective? How does it change your everyday interaction with the physical world around you?
Are you standing on vulnerable ground because you're unaware? Or are you equipped, potentially, to understand and maybe even utilize these principles for establishing blessing and victory?
Understanding the invisible battle, the source insists, starts with knowing what's literally underfoot.
Thank you for listening.
Don't forget to share this message with your friends and family. Let the fire spread.
We'll see you soon for another episode of Jesus Fighter, where we keep fighting the good fight of faith.
Stay strong, stay blessed, and keep walking in victory.